Today I'm going to be making homemade multigrain bread. You don't have to use multigrain, I just happen to have that. But you can go to your grocery store and buy another whole grain, like whole wheat, for instance. The thing about any whole grain, that whenever you're starting to make your bread, you need to soak that grain for a little while because it's not like your regular store-bought flour that you see every day. You're going to have to soak it a little bit to soften it up before you start your recipe. To 1.5 cups of the multigrain or whole grain flour, I'm going to add 2 3/4 cups of boiling water. I'm going to stir it. It will look like a paste, and I'm going to let it set for just a little while, about 20 minutes until it's cooled off, and then we'll go to the next step. Just stir that water into that multigrain or whole grain until it's smooth like a paste, and then let it set for 20 minutes. After you stir in the honey, add 2.5 teaspoons of instant yeast. Incorporate that into the mixture and let it sit for about 10 minutes so the yeast will be activated. The next step is to add 4.5 cups of all-purpose flour into the mixture, which you can see that I already put into my KitchenAid to make it a lot easier because this has to be kneaded. I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of flour at a time into the mixture that has the yeast in it and the multigrain flour. You want to let it stir on a low setting, maybe a 2 to a 4 speed. You can do this by hand, but it's so easy to do it this way. From time to time, stop your mixer and lower your bowl and use your spatula to scrape down the sides of your bowl. It'll help incorporate that flour into the mixture. At this point, I'm going to get in here with my hands and I'm going to make sure that all of the flour has been incorporated into the dough. I'm going to continue to knead this until this ball of dough has incorporated all of the loose flour and this ball becomes very smooth on top. And when I get there, I'll come back and show you what I've done. If you don't want to continue kneading it by hand, you can still put it back into the mixer and let the mixer do the kneading for you. What we're looking for is a nice smooth ball. I'll check it now, but I think we're done. The dough is nice and smooth. I made it into a ball and put it into a large bowl that had some olive oil smoothed around inside of it. I'm going to cover this with a cloth or a piece of plastic and put it in my oven. Now the oven is turned off, but it's nice and warm in there because I have the light on in my oven, and that's going to help it rise. I'm going to leave it in there for about an hour, and then I'll show you what we do next. Okay, we just took the dough out of the oven. It's been rising in there for about an hour. It's time to add the salt and do a little more kneading. So I'm gonna put it out on my board and add 1 teaspoon of salt over the top of it. I'm using sea salt. I like it better than the regular iodized salt. I'm going to knead this now for a good 5 minutes because I want that salt to be incorporated into the whole ball of dough, and it needs to be thoroughly mixed in so I don't have any salty spots. I'm going to do this for 5 minutes. At that point, I'll put it back into the bowl. I'll cover it like I did before, and put it back into the oven for another hour for the second rising. This recipe will make 2 loaves of bread. So while the dough is still in the oven and going through its second rise, I'm going to go ahead and grease the inside of 2 loaf pans. You can use butter or you can use olive oil. I'm going to use an olive oil spray simply because it's easy. Okay, it's been about 50 minutes and my dough has doubled in size, so I'm going to take it out. It's so soft right now. The next thing we do is cut it in half. You can measure it by weighing it on a scale, but it's just as easy to do it this way. Now I'm going to spread out my dough. I don't want to smash it though. I just want to kind of shape it. Okay. I'm going to fold it over. People do this different ways. You want to make your dough nice and tight. So you press down on it as you roll it and shape it. And when you feel like it's tight and the right shape, simply put it into your pan. I am definitely not an expert at this part. So many other people just make it so easily. I kind of have to just work with it. And of course, every time I do it different. By doing it this way, I'm keeping it tight. You don't want floppy dough. You want to have the tension in it. But yet you want it to be shaped like your loaf pan. At this point, I'll tell you, you don't have to cook it in a loaf pan. You could cook it in a Dutch oven. You could actually make little balls of dough and bake it in a skillet. But anyway, I'm gonna put mine like that. I will cover these and let them rise again. And when they're all the way up to the top of the pan, I'll come right back and tell you what we do next. I just put the bread in the oven at 375 degrees, and I will check it in about 20 to 25 minutes and see if it's done. Okay, it's time to check the bread, and you can tell that this bread looks really rustic, and that's because when I shaped it for the final time, I didn't do a really great job, but it really doesn't matter. The taste is what counts. Now, some people test the bread by thumping it, and when it sounds hollow, which it does, then it's normally done. Another way that I like to use is a thermometer. And bread is done when it reaches around 200 degrees. So this is 202 degrees, so that means it is perfectly done. And it's time to bring it out of the oven and let it sit for about 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm gonna dump it out onto a rack so it can cool off. And then when it cools down some, we're gonna put some good butter and honey or jelly on it and enjoy this wonderful bread.